If you like audiobooks or audio shows, check out a free trial of Audible. Just click the link in the description.
Welcome to Mindshock True Crime. This is your host, Bruce McGuire. And you are listening to the Delphi Murders case series. This is episode 51, Myron Grove. Is there yet another murder case tied to possibly not only the Delphi Murders, but the Evansdale Murders, which many people are not talking about anymore for some reason? And on the Evansdale Murders podcasts, I went over how statistically rare these types of crimes are. So when you factor in the proximity, just looking at pure statistics and nothing else, it makes it seem basically borderline impossible that there's not some kind of relation. Again, I'm not claiming anything is true or untrue. This is Mindshock, where the only thing we know for sure is that we don't know anything for sure. I don't claim anything is true or untrue for the Dunning-Kruger crowd that get triggered in the comment section. I'll say it again. I do not claim anything is true or untrue. This is a logical analysis podcast, attempting not to fall for any kind of logical fallacies like all the mainstream coverage or other podcasts. So we're going to take a look at yet another crime that might have a tie here. I also went over the Jordan Sofer case. Some people think that's related. It's awfully coincidental how Richard Allen and the Kleins seem to be living in these areas. But yeah, I mean, this is truly a very perplexing case with a lot of moving pieces, and we're going to attempt to decipher even more today. As always, if you find the podcast interesting and informative and want to help support the podcast, help the logical analysis of various true crime cases, cold cases, missing persons cases, wrongful convictions, and anything and everything in between, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. You could also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case, topic, logical analysis, co-podcaster requests. So let's jump right in here. Credit to Wise Mance on the Delphi Murders subreddit who first brought this to my attention. Why I believe the Delphi, Myron Grove, and Evansdale were all perpetrated by the same individual. Someone recently asked me why I thought these cases might be linked, and I figured it was worth making a post. In case anyone isn't familiar with the murder of Alicia Hummel at Myron Grove, here's an article summarizing what is known. This is now on Kiloland.com, Cold Cases Murder at Myron Grove by Angela Kenneck. Posted June 1st, 2021, murder at Myron Grove, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Who brutally killed 29-year-old Alicia Hummel? 6 years following her murder near Vermillion, her family is no closer to getting the answer. The place and timing of Alicia's death are shocking. Unbelievable that somebody could get away with it. Our Kiloland News investigator uncovers new details about the events leading up to Alicia's death and what evidence was left behind. Alicia Hummel's beloved by her friends and family. It's one of those relationships I'll probably never find again. You called Alicia and she was there. Friend Bethany Svakina said. She was the best aunt, like the best aunt ever to my firstborn, sister Erica Kempf said. No fear, that's the one thing I always worried about. Just didn't seem to fear things, grandmother Jan Folkers said. It was that lack of fear that meant Alicia didn't think twice about going fishing by herself, leaving her grandparents' home in Sioux City on June 1st, 2015. The preschool teacher posted on her Facebook page that morning, first day of vacay, I'm going fishing. Alicia began sharing her excursion on Snapchat. One of her first snaps, when your pole doesn't fit in your car. She took another picture as she drove into South Dakota, and then yet another as she entered Myron Grove and pulled up near the dock. Finally, I've been waiting since fall, she shared. Going fishing was a way to clear her mind. If you go to Myron Grove, you'll see the beauty of Myron Grove. It's a very beautiful place, Svakina said. A beautiful place that turned ugly minutes after Alicia arrived. Her last text was at 1:45 p.m. She wrote to a friend, "It's a great day to get in on," or something to that effect, "two people having sex." She saw two people having sex, Svakina said. Some 30 minutes later, a South Dakota Game Fish and Parks employee spotted Alicia's body in the water next to the dock. "It's frustrating how fast everything happened," Jan Folkers said. Jan and Dwayne Folkers raised their two granddaughters, Alicia and Erica. Jan will never forget the phone call she got from the detective informing her about Alicia's death. "He broke up and he said, 'We're going to catch this son, this SOB.'" He stopped himself. "Angela Kneck, they told you they were going to catch her killer?" Jan Folkers said, "Yeah." Leaving no stone unturned, Clay County Sheriff's deputy continued to search through the tall grass about a half mile from where Alicia Hummel's body was found, looking for anything that would lead them to her killer, Don Jorgensen reported on June 2nd, 2015. But as the years pass and no killer is caught, Alicia's family is filled with doubt. "It's awful and it's sad to think that it's been 6 years to know that we don't have closure. We have no closure at all," Erica said. "There are people we have not ruled out. We do have suspects, but we don't have a case," Clay County Sheriff Andy Howe said. Clay County Sheriff Andy Howe has worked with the DCI and the FBI to try to solve Alicia's murder. Howe stated, "The death was caused by drowning, and additionally, she had blunt force trauma and wounds to her neck." Angela Kneck, "That sounds like a pretty violent crime." Howe, "Yes, we believe it was very violent, yes." Angela Kneck, "So people who usually commit violent crimes you considered an act of passion, maybe somebody knew her?" Howe stated, "We don't have any indication that that was the case, that this was anything other than a stranger and a crime of opportunity." While law enforcement contends that Alicia may have seen something that day that she shouldn't have, those close to her have a hard time believing it was a random act. "I'm going to bash your head in. I'm going to make sure I'm going to slash your throat. And then I'm going to throw you in the water. I'm going to kill you 3 ways, Svakina said. What? Investigators first looked at what was going on in Alicia's personal life. She was estranged from her husband, Tony, and the couple was preparing a divorce. Bethany had introduced Alicia to Tony in high school. "You just hope it's really bad coincidence that they were talking about divorce and that they were going to potentially sign papers in the next week," Svakina said. I mean, that is coincidental. I mean, possibly. I mean, yeah, that's weird. Investigators say that Tony Hummel has an alibi. He was in Pierre at the time of Alicia's death. Tony has since moved out of state and did not respond to our attempts to contact him. And the thing about people moving out of state, yes, sometimes it's suspicious. Sometimes it's just people that want to get away from the trauma. I mean, again, I don't know anything about this situation or Tony Hummel personally, obviously. Is it possible he didn't want to get divorced and he was upset by all this and so severely traumatized? Or maybe he did want to get divorced and then he regretted it and now he blames himself that maybe that wouldn't have happened, but who knows? Okay, so whoever killed Alicia left very few clues. The state worker who found her body in a nearby residence saw a vehicle leaving the area but only had a vague description. Angela Kneck asked, "Just a dark car." Howe stated, "A dark car. That's all you got?" "We had very little information, no model." Folkers stated, "They told me about a pair of shoes that were found there. Men's shoes that he, one of the investigators, said resembles shoes that you would wear in a restaurant." Angela Kneck stated, "It would be strange to have a pair of shoes like that out at a remote graveled lake area." Folkers said, "Right, unless they took them off when they went to put her in the water. He didn't want to get his shoes wet." No, but how dumb is this guy? Because he would leave? He left the shoes there? What? This is very weird, if that's related to this. Jan said investigators told her they put up surveillance cameras at the scene after the murder. They put 1 or 2 cameras out there and got about 2,000 pictures afterwards, thinking sometimes they can come back to the scene, and I guess nothing came of that either, Jan Folkers said. Alicia's fishing pole was never found. That's kind of weird. Why would he take the pole? A year later, Alicia's purse was discovered on a sandbar with her cash and items intact inside. However, her cell phone was missing. Investigators have not released Alicia's autopsy to her family, saying it may contain information only the killer would know. The manner in which she was killed also holds clues that could eventually break the case. Howe stated, "Cutting." Angela Kneck asked, "With a scissors, a knife?" "Well, we don't have that information." "And the blunt force, she was hit by something?" "Yeah, but you don't know what." I can't tell you. Angela Knack asks, you do know? Hal responds, yes. Angela Knack stated, so you have the murder weapon? You know what it was? Hal states, I can't really discuss that at this point. So that's interesting. So he states he knows what the weapon was, even though he can't say what it was, but he does not confirm that they have the murder weapon. So this is, depending on the autopsy, if it was a very obvious murder weapon, they might know what it is without having it. So it's not necessarily guaranteed that they have it. Her family believes she put up a fight because of what they noticed at her funeral. They had her hands folded, and we could see that one of her fingers was broken. So we know that she struggled. I assume it was to hang on to the phone. That phone was her Bible. It had everything in it, Folker said. I mean, I don't know about that. Without seeing the autopsy, it's kind of impossible to say, because if she was being attacked just in the melee, her finger might have gotten broken, not necessarily because she was fighting back, but who knows. And her family believes Alicia's fingers may have also contained her killer's DNA. Her fingernails were all black from where they had checked for DNA, I'm sure, but she wasn't in the water that long, so there should be some DNA from somewhere, Folker said. I'm guessing that's just her assumption. Hal stated, obviously DNA evidence is valuable if the opportunity would ever come up. Knack asked, because you do have DNA evidence that you could? Hal responds, we have a lot of evidence, but I can't really tell you what we have. Angela Knack states, right, but if you could match someone's DNA, Hal states, ideally, yes. Ideally, we would match DNA. So he's not really confirming anything. He's not saying they do have DNA. Bethany says the loss of her friend has left a void in her life. Alicia missed out on the births of Bethany's children. She runs a Facebook page fighting for Alicia, where she keeps her best friend's story alive. We're going to fight for Alicia until Alicia gets justice, Svakina said. Camp stated, I just want the truth. I want to know who did it, who was there, who watched. I just want to know. Connect stated, what do you miss most? My best friend. I miss my best friend. There is a $5,000 reward leading for anyone with information leading to an arrest in this case. That poster hangs in the booking area of the Clay County Jail. Sheriff Howe says he hopes someday it triggers a memory in someone coming into the jail who may know something about Alicia's death. Okay, so basically we have here a text that may have referred to Alicia witnessing two people or two or more people engaged in some kind of sexual act. Now, there's a few problems here. If they're just random people engaged in a sexual act, why would they care? If they're two adults or teenagers of the same age, whatever, why would they care that she saw them? Now, and if one of them, why would they both kill her? Or if one of them killed her, the other one is a witness and they would know. Or is this the case of possibly a man, a non-consensual situation? I mean, people can call me sexist for assuming the man is the one instigating a non-consensual encounter. But for the sake of argument, let's say it's a man engaging in a non-consensual act with, an adult or even not an adult, and then she witnesses this. Now this man would have motive to get rid of her. So is that what happened? Or is this completely unrelated and there possibly was a couple engaging in some kind of sexual act, but there was also someone else there? And I don't see here whether the people in the car, they just saw the car, for other people in the area saw a dark car. Doesn't seem like there's information on whether they can make out one or more figures in the car. So was this a sole perpetrator in the car, or was it two or more people in the car? There's actually even more details on this article from Inforum.com. Murder on the Missouri River, Alicia Hummel's unsolved murder inches closer to justice. The search to piece together evidence and find the 29-year-old preschool teacher's killer has led investigators and those close to Alicia Hummel down a tumultuous road of dead ends and unanswered questions. By Tricia Torinskas. December 2nd, 2021 is the date of this article. More than 6 years ago, 29-year-old preschool teacher Alicia Hummel was murdered in broad daylight at a popular boating and fishing dock located 11 miles out of quiet Vermillion, South Dakota. The news was shocking, leaving many with questions as to why and who would have so violently ended the life of a young woman who, in many ways, was at the start of a promising new phase of her life. Her body was discovered in the shallow waters of the Missouri River near the Myron Grove River access boat landing shortly after her murder, June 1st, 2015, by a South Dakota Game Fish and Parks employee. The autopsy report revealed Alicia Hummel sustained blunt force trauma to the head and suffered a large laceration to her neck. Yet, drowning was listed as the cause of her death. The search to piece together evidence and find her killer has led investigators and those close to Alicia Hummel down a tumultuous road of dead ends and unanswered questions. Yet the case is far from cold, according to Clay County Sheriff Andy Howe. New evidence has provided hope for Howe and Alicia Hummel's loved ones that justice is not out of reach. I'm optimistic as I sit here today that we're going to clear this case, Howe said. I won't say that I've been optimistic every day since June, but as I sit here today, I am. While Alicia Hummel's phone was previously considered missing evidence, Howe said her phone is in the hands of investigators. Now, this is weird. So what's going on here? So a year later, they got her purse washed up or found on the sandbar randomly without the phone. Now, all this time later, years later, now the phone is in the hands of investigators, but there's no information as how they came to it. That's weird. Okay, details of the case remain largely guarded as it is considered an ongoing investigation. The events leading to Alicia Hummel's murder. It is assumed that Alicia Hummel traveled alone to Myron Grove on that early summer day. It wasn't unusual for her to pack up her fishing gear and head out for a day of solitude on the water. She was an adventurous woman described by those close to her as a trusting soul who believed the best in people. Her plans were well documented on social media, with Facebook posts the night before and the morning indicated she was excited to spend her first day of vacation fishing. Having accepted a new position, Alicia Hummel had 1 month free between jobs. The events leading up to her death were pieced together through Snapchats and text messages sent to friends. In one Snapchat, she captured the image of her fishing rod sitting on the passenger seat of a car with the top of the pole sticking out of the sunroof. Another message sent at around 1 p.m. indicated she was missing her tackle box. Wait a second. So are none of these images including herself? So before I get back to that Reddit post on connections with the Delphi and Evansdale cases potentially, does anybody believe that there's some kind of staging going on here with these Snapchats or social media posts? But continuing on here. Another message sent at around 1 p.m. indicated she was missing her tackle box. 15 minutes later, she sent a message that she had stopped at Walmart in Vermillion to purchase a fishing license, making note of the kind elderly man who sold her the license and wished her well. I'm assuming this was all verified, but by 1:30 p.m., a Snapchat message showed a photo of the Myron Grove boat landing dock with a caption that read, "Finally, I've been waiting since fall." At 1:45 p.m., she fired off a text message to a friend, indicated she saw two people in a car having sex. Okay, so they were inside of a vehicle. So how many vehicles were in that area? It's saying that this is a popular boat landing spot. So how many vehicles were around in the middle of the day in broad daylight? Alicia Hummel okay, so her body was discovered at roughly 2 p.m. So 1:30 p.m. Actually, 1:45 p.m. is her last text. 1:30 p.m. Snapchat message, 1:45 text message to a friend. 2 p.m. she's dead and the body's covered. So within 15 minutes of that last text. While Howe will not release the exact manner in which her body was found, it was located near the dock she had captured through Snapchat less than 1 hour prior to her death. That leaves roughly 15 minutes between her last text message and the time her body was discovered. And okay, if that was really her that sent the text, but if it wasn't her who sent the text, why would somebody send that text? I mean, that's kind of a weird text to send if it was either the killer or somebody else using her phone. We believe that we have a very narrow time frame between her arriving in the area, her being killed, and her being discovered. A very narrow time frame, Howe said. As for the location of the initial violence against Alicia Hummel, Howe places the scene on the riverbank, located 10 to 15 feet from the water where she was found. Howe said he's not at liberty to discuss the murder weapon or weapons, but did indicate that the presumption is that the laceration on the neck was intended to cause harm and was not the byproduct of a struggle. Howe would not respond to questions regarding whether Alicia Hummel was sexually assaulted. The autopsy report has not been released to the family, a decision Howe said was made due to the ongoing nature of the investigation. The dark-colored sedan, the game, fish, and wildlife employee who discovered Alicia Hummel's body was never named, but Howe said that simply because there wasn't a need to release his name. Okay, so it's a male. He was, however, initially questioned rigorously by law enforcement. He was subjected to quite a bit of interviews. He really went through a lot, Howe said, but he was very helpful. It was the Game, Fish, and Parks employee who provided the information that a dark-colored sedan with a loud exhaust was spotted driving away from the boat landing on the sole road that leads to and from Myron Grove prior to his discovery of Alicia Hummel in the water. The employee was unable to specifically identify the make and model of the vehicle. To this date, nobody has ever come forward, which leads you to suspect that the people involved were in that car. But we have not been able to speak to those folks or that person, Howe said. But that's why we look so hard for that car. We get tips even to this day about that car. In the text message Alicia Hummel sent around 1:45 p.m. indicated she had witnessed two people having sex in a car. She did not provide any details as to what the vehicle looked like. So it may or may not have been that vehicle. Alicia Marie Focal's Hummel reward... Okay, so the suspect list. At the time of Alicia Hummel's death, she was separated from her college sweetheart and husband, Tony Hummel, and in the process of filing for a divorce. As is the case in most murder investigations, the spouse was questioned by law enforcement. In this case, Tony Hummel's location at the time of the murder put him more than 200 miles from the scene, a solid alibi for law enforcement officials. Tony Hummel's current wife, Sarah Hummel, known as Sarah Gallimore at the time of the murder, was also questioned by law enforcement. I won't say she was considered a suspect, but she was questioned and interviewed multiple times. Howe said she was cooperative. There have been suspects over the years, Howe said, yet to this date, a case has not been presented to the county prosecutor. In terms of any new possible suspects, Howe said he isn't able to discuss specifics and timelines, but new suspects have been considered within the last 5 years. Names are presented to us all the time by people, he said, and we've certainly had some new names presented within the last 5 years. As for the witnesses at the scene, not one person has come forward. That's an aspect of the case that has been particularly frustrating for Howe, especially considering Alicia Hummel's text message history indicated that there were, in fact, at least two people present in a parked vehicle. If there were people in the car, they were there in roughly the same time frame. Whether they were involved or not, I would very much appreciate visiting with them, Howe said. No such person has ever approached us. Howe said they've also made it clear that they'd be interested in speaking to anyone who was at the boat landing earlier in the day, as that may provide new information for the investigation. Even if there are people saying they were there 3 hours earlier, I would like to talk to them, Howe said. See, this is kind of weird. If it's this popular of a spot, why has no one come forward that they were there earlier or after at any point during the day? This is weird because even if there are people saying that they were there hours, so is that statement from Howe, does that mean nobody has come forward? Or have they, and for whatever reason, he just wants more people, so he's, I don't know why he would phrase it that way. Alicia Hummel was known for her love of fishing, a pastime she was pursuing at the time of her murder on June 1st, 2015. Her body was found in the waters of the Missouri River near the Myron Grove River access boat dock. The cell phone. At the time Alicia Hummel's body was discovered, law enforcement officials said her purse, cell phone, and fishing pole were considered missing evidence. The keys to her car were discovered on the front passenger seat of her vehicle, located in the parking lot closest to the boat landing. Is that kind of weird? Would she leave her own keys on the passenger seat of her vehicle? Anybody find that weird? Like right on the seat, out in plain sight? A number of national and local enforcement agencies were included in the initial investigation and search of the area, including the South Dakota Department of Criminal Investigation, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, South Dakota Game, Fish, and Parks Department, Vermillion Police Department, Highway Patrol, and Clay County Sheriff's Office. Since then, Clay County Sheriff's Office and DCI have taken the lead with help from the FBI along the way. The FBI has been used multiple times throughout, Howe said. We've reached out to them for assistance several times. We're not actively working with them right now, but I can imagine that we'll be talking to them again. They've been helpful whenever we've needed help. A year after her murder, Alicia Hummel's purse was discovered by local college kids at an above-water sandbar located on the river. The contents of her purse, including cash and credit cards, remained intact. The cell phone, however, was not located in the purse. It doesn't say how far away this was from where she was killed, though. Howe's recent admission that law enforcement located and possesses the cell phone is new information for the family and the public. Wait a second. So, what? While the cell phone was assumed to be missing on the 6th anniversary of Alicia Hummel's murder, Howe would not give a definitive answer as to when, how, or where the cell phone was found. We found a cell phone. It's Alicia's phone. Yes, we did discover the cell phone during the investigation, Howe said. Howe would not comment as to whether Alicia Hummel's fishing pole had been located. So again, the pole was missing at the time of the murder, and even several years later, it was still stated missing. Now, in 2021, he's stating that no comment on the fishing pole, whether it was located or not, and no comment on when the phone was recovered. But basically, this is new to everybody. So over 6 years later, there's verification from Howe that they do have the phone, but he didn't state at which point they got the phone. So theoretically, they might have had it for a while. For so many close to Alicia Hummel, the cell phone was considered a missing piece they would hope provided more information. In addition to whatever may be on the phone, close friend Bethany Svakina said friends and family members were also holding out hope that new technology would provide clues or answers to the whereabouts of the phone or where it may have traveled. There are aspects of the case Howe said investigators have been working on adamantly. We've been seeking digital records pretty much since the first day. He said even now that's one of the ongoing avenues, seeing what sort of digital avenues might exist, looking at new tech, we've gathered quite a bit of that. The technology he speaks of relates to data that could reveal what cell phone towers were pinged or accessed as the phone came within close proximity. It's that sort of technology that could provide a roadmap that the phone and possibly the suspect or suspects traveled. There is so much available now, Howe said. We're trying to make it retroactive for previous data. It just takes time and requires assistance from other entities. Okay, is he admitting here that the phone was recovered sometime later and now nowhere near the scene? So is he alleging here that it may have been taken by the perpetrators? Because otherwise, why, if it was found near where she was missing or in the river, supposedly if it was with her as she died and then traveled down the river a little bit, why would there be a need for all of this? It's kind of weird. Waiting on justice, Svakina was Alicia Hummel's close friend and spent the last 6.5 years speaking out about her friend's murder in the hopes of keeping her name and her case alive. For Svakina and those who knew and loved Alicia Hummel, the last 6 years have been trying, yet Svakina said her hope for justice was recently renewed. I feel really good about this, she said. I don't know what it is, if it's Alicia leading me or what it is. Something tells me we're moving in the right direction. That recent feeling has been comforting for Svakina, but it doesn't blind her from the hurt and frustration she and so many people have endured since June 1st, 2015. In addition to the heart-wrenching grief, they've consistently been confronted with unanswered questions regarding what happened that day. It's just so frustrating on the end of myself and even the family. Her grandpa just celebrated his 87th birthday, Svakina said. Are they going to see this through? Are they going to see the end of the light and the person or persons who did this brought to justice? I mean, you think about a ticking time clock, that's what you think about. And so I really do hope that's where we're at, that they're getting closer to getting answers. Seeking justice is complex for those who loved Alicia Hummel. In addition to discovering who violently murdered their friend and why, there's also a certain sense of discomfort and unease that comes with knowing her killer continues to walk free, particularly when the crime occurred in a small town. For those who continue to vocally seek justice for their friend, they often wonder if their actions are being noticed by the person who took Alicia Hummel's life. I guess that's why I want justice, so that maybe her grandparents can sleep a little better at night, she said. Maybe her sisters and her brother and her parents and, those friends can all sleep a little better at night, knowing the person who did that to her is sleeping in a cell and not living the freedom of their life. However, they've wanted to live it for the last 6 years. Like so many people who have been touched by this case, Svakina still holds on to hope that the person or people responsible for Alicia Hummel's death would surrender to the guilt, giving her and Alicia Hummel's loved ones the peace they've been seeking for so long. There's also that part of you that hopes that what they did eats at them every day, and maybe they'll gain up the courage to not want to live with it the rest of their life and turn themselves in, she said. But, that's kind of one of those miracles that you hope happens. On the investigative side, Howe and his team continue to march forward with the ultimate goal of putting together a case for the prosecutors that ends in the conviction of Alicia Hummel's killer or killers. My goal is not only to arrest the killer, but to also successfully prosecute. And there's just so much I can't discuss right now. I don't want to jeopardize the case, he said. Yet he would say this, he has hopes. I'm optimistic. Like I said, it is an active investigation. We do have leads, Howe said. I think that we've had periods where there's nothing happened or nothing changed for months at a time, and I got concerned about that, but then we'll have some new info or get a report back from another entity or lab that will get us moving again. Okay, so it sounds like there is something to work with in this case. Although obviously very mysterious indeed. Did she know the people in the vehicle? And why would they want to kill her, whether she noticed them having sex or not? And how far away was she from the vehicle? Because if she's really far away, would they really just run her down and kill her just because she saw them from a distance? Or did she think the car was empty and walked right by it and then noticed, and then they noticed her noticing? But I mean, I don't know. I mean, that's got to be not one of the most popular motives. People get noticed engaged in a sexual act and they kill the person that noticed them, particularly if the act was consensual among adults. But yeah, it's kind of weird. But let's go back to the Delphi Murders subreddit and see what this individual, Wise Mance, has been able to connect or not connect. I don't think the crimes at Delphi and Myron Grove get compared often because they seem very different on the surface. There's a very different victimology and they occurred in different states, Indiana and South Dakota. Libby and Abby were 2 young teenage girls and Alicia Hummel was a 29-year-old woman. Despite these differences, there seem to be several similarities, which include the fact that they occurred in broad daylight in public parks around 2 p.m. Both incidents were on Mondays. Libby, Abby, and Alicia also posted to their Snapchat stories shortly before they were murdered, and the murders took place within very short time frames. These details could be all coincidental, but it definitely makes me wonder. The cause and manner of death have not been released for Libby and Abby. For Hummel, she was struck with a blunt object. If I had to guess, I'd say a rock. Her throat was cut and she was shoved into the water while probably unconscious, where she ultimately drowned. It was extremely violent. At least one of the girls, of Libby and Abby, was rumored to have been struck in the head, and both were rumored to have their throats cut. Remember, these are just rumors, but I still find it intriguing. So basically, we have potentially very similar MOs, but very different victimology. We don't know the perpetrator's motives for these crimes, but there's a good chance they were acts of rage or fulfillment of violent fantasies. I think there's also probably a component of sexual attraction to underage girls. This is just my guess, but for what it's worth, Rodney Alcala, aka the dating game killer, is an example of a serial killer who targeted prepubescent girls in addition to adult women. Alcala was caught long before these murders took place, but I mention him to point out that some killers select a wide array of victims. In the instance of Hummel, she reportedly texted her friend saying she saw 2 people having sex in a car. I wonder if maybe she unintentionally witnessed the sexual assault of an underage girl. She may have been murdered just to be eliminated as a possible witness. Nothing of value is reported to have been stolen from her, so theft seems like an unlikely motive. But there's also an interesting little detail that I find difficult to ignore. If you go to Google Maps and put in directions from the Myron Grove boat ramp to the Monon High Bridge, both of the major routes take you right past Evansdale. It's approximately halfway between them on a 10-hour drive. What if there was someone with reasons to travel from South Dakota to Indiana or vice versa? Is it possible they broke the trip up into 2 days and spent the night in Evansdale? There's a really good chance that at least have driven past. I find it extremely intriguing that Chadwell was living in South Dakota when the Evansdale and Myron Grove murders happened, and I believe he would have been out of prison on supervised release. He was definitely back in Indiana by 2016. He technically wasn't granted permission from his parole board to leave South Dakota until October 2015, but that didn't stop him from violating these terms by going to Iowa on at least one occasion. I know a lot of people have dismissed him as a possible POI in the Delphi murders, but I still think he's viable. At the very least, he's a violent man with a history of abducting children. I imagine many will be skeptical, and perhaps rightfully so. No matter what you think, thanks for taking the time to read. And I've gone over Chadwell pretty extensively on previous episodes of Mindshock here. Make sure you check them out if you haven't already. He's definitely a highly suspicious character. He looks like a dead ringer for the sketch, more so than anybody else, especially Richard Allen, but again, if there's a ring involved here, and there's multiple scumbags all in the ring, even if perhaps individuals in the rings committed these crimes and they know about them, even if it wasn't necessarily the same guy or guys. So we have here 2012, 2015, 2017. Fairly spread out. And what was Richard Allen doing during this time? And then we could also add in Jordan Sofer, even though that was all the way back in 2006. How many other crimes are there as well? I mean, Also, Gora Madog posted in response to this theory, James Brian Chadwell lived on the same street as the Kleins at one point. I mean, that's kind of weird because you have Allen, the Kleins, and Chadwell all living in the same area, possibly even within blocks or on the same street of each other. I mean, that's kind of weird. No matter how you slice it, that's kind of weird. And again, if they're all scumbags involved with abusing children in some fashion or other crimes, possibly murder, would it be surprising that birds of a feather flock together? I mean, a lot of criminal scumbags know each other if their trade is similar. Like drug dealers know of other drug dealers, whether they're friends or not. I mean, it's not that... I think if these people were all subjected to brain fingerprint scan, I mean, not necessarily waterboarding. Some people are in support of torturing these bastards. Obviously, if somebody's already been convicted of crime definitively against children, like Chadwell, it's kind of hard to say, it's kind of hard to argue against waterboarding. But some of these other individuals, if there's actually no hard evidence that they committed any crime, I mean, that's a little bit tougher to justify torturing them information. But what about a painless brain fingerprint scan? What about that? Just to help the case, would they agree to it or not? I mean, that would be evidence in and of itself, whether they would even agree to it. But you could always just, use the bribery aspect. Why can't rewards be given for these brain fingerprint scans? Because if they're truly innocent, I mean, that's valuable information to rule them out with brain fingerprint scan technology, much more accurate than lie detector tests, of course. So, just passing by, Sorry posted this, resident South Dakotan here. Take this with a grain of salt, but I've heard rumors that the couple, Alicia thought she saw having sex wasn't a couple, but an underage victim of sex trafficking being assaulted. There's been a rapid increase of human trafficking here in the past decade due to poverty and teenage drug addiction. It's possible that because she had her phone out and was taking pictures of the area, the guy thought she was intentionally or unintentionally documenting evidence, hence why her phone was missing for a period of time, and why it seems like it had been forcibly ripped from her hands. That's just the current local theory, though. Okay, very interesting. So this is a claimed local resident here in South Dakota. And these are the rumors, true or not, these are allegedly the local rumors. That actually kind of makes sense and would explain this, would it not? Because if her phone is out, and a criminal trafficker or assaulter of some kind committing a criminal act against a minor or an adult, whoever, they wouldn't want that documented. So, and now there's a witness. So even if she wasn't filming into the car, if she just assumed it was two consenting adults, if she was filming the dock, but it was kind of angled the same way as the car, that's motive right there. That's motive. But the thing that doesn't make sense is why would they ever not destroy the phone in that situation? So if they ripped the phone from her hands and possibly breaking her finger in the process and then killed her, why? I mean, would they trust wiping the phone? I mean, they knew that if they killed her, there's a murder. I mean, there's possible data on the phone. They at least have to think maybe the FBI can recover the data. So why not bury the phone or take it so far away, smash it into a billion pieces that it would never be recovered or identified as this individual's phone ever? So that is a curiosity, unless perhaps somebody else stole the phone from the guilty party and somehow submitted it to law enforcement. That could also be why they didn't want to reveal any details about the phone. Because if this victim or a different victim, if they either knew or suspected that the phone was connected to this case, maybe they were the ones who sent it into law enforcement, unbeknownst to the killer. Winter Aside posted this. I always appreciate reading your posts. You're well-informed and articulate. You're also one of the few people here that have been convinced that James Brian Chadwell is Bridge Guy. I'm in the same corner with you and have been for quite some time. This is the first I've heard of Myron Grove. I can totally see this being related to Delphi and Evansdale. Some will say law enforcement has claimed Delphi and Evansdale aren't linked. They don't have to tell us. They can lie. Well, or be mistaken, of course, as well. Law enforcement everywhere does it. They have to protect the integrity of their cases, and if lying to the public helps them do that, so be it. Others have mentioned Kelsey saying he's not our bad guy. I think people believe she knows more than she actually does. Carter even said he can't answer questions, and he can't imagine how that makes him feel, or Mike or Patty's questions. They are keeping a tight lid on this case, and they aren't letting the families know much. Carter just as much said so. All that being said, I came across something interesting on Web Sleuths. I, being the technological idiot that I am, can't get it to post here, but it's James Bryan Chadwell to Google My Maps. He has his whole name typed out, but I know we can't do that here. Anyway, someone made a map of all the places he's lived and addresses associated with him. In fact, your last link is where I found it. If you go there and scroll down just a bit, you'll find Google Maps link for all his residences. There's a lot of them. And as you said, he was living in South Dakota at the time of the Myron Grove and Evansdale murders, but wasn't allowed to leave the state. Violating parole would be of no issue to him, so making a trip to Iowa is entirely in the realm of possibility. Despite all the interest surrounding Keegan Kline and Tony Kline, I haven't changed my mind. With James Bryan Chadwell, there are too many things for them to all be coincidences. We know he will be in prison for the rest of his life, but Libby and Abby still deserve justice. Tack on another 90 years. I'm sure law enforcement has his DNA. Maybe the crime scene DNA is degraded and it's taking much longer to examine it. Maybe the tech doesn't exist yet to get a match on such a poor sample. If that is the case, I'm hoping I'm wrong about that. At any rate, I believe Keegan Kline and James Bryan Chadwell have some sort of connection through the Anthony Shots account. Maybe they only know each other by their online monikers and could pass each other on the street and not know one another. It's a tangled web, but I honestly believe that when law enforcement untangles it, and they will, James Bryan Chadwell is going to be right in the middle of it. You know what this reminds me of? If you haven't checked out the JonBenet Ramsey series on Mindshock, check that out. The latest episode is going to be the most mind-shocking yet. It is dropping soon, or maybe by the time you listen to this, it would have already dropped, involving some kind of abuse sex ring. And that's why there's so many suspects in the JonBenet Ramsey case. From Helgoth and Gygax to Mervyn Pugh, the housekeeper's husband. A lot of allegations of abuse. The JonBenet Ramsey photographer, who's currently in prison for child exploitation materials online. And all of these things, if there really was a ring, that means a lot of people are guilty and they know about it. Now, there were even rumors that JonBenet's death was actually filmed and it's on the dark web. Now, if that was going on in the late 90s... What are the possibilities here? So is there a circle of criminals that all know about it? Whether they know this is a good point in terms of, online names. Maybe they don't actually know each other's real identities. Maybe they know usernames or whatever. But is it plausible these sickos are somehow involved in a ring and one or more of them either know about these murders or it's the same individual or individuals committing them? I mean, this is all very, very mind-shocking. Detective Safe posted this. Something that was taken from Alicia was her phone. Her family is quoted as saying they noticed at the funeral services that at least one of her fingers were broken, perhaps in an attempt to fight to hold on to her phone. What I have found extremely interesting is in the same week, police in South Dakota publicly announce that they are now in possession of her phone, which was found at the crime scene. And the ISP announced the Anthony Shots account. In my opinion, someone is talking. I, too, have thought that James Bryan Chadwell is involved in all of these crimes. He was out on parole when Alicia was murdered, and Chadwell's ex-wife and her family are from or live 20 miles west of where Alicia was murdered. After the murder, he requested the transfer to Indiana, which was granted in December 2015. Okay. That's kind of weird. Oh, wow. So the phone was found at the scene. So this article, updated December 7th, 2020 by Angela Kinneck. Investigators have cold case cell phone on kiloland.com. Clay County Sheriff Andy Howe now confirms that investigators have Hummel's phone and that it was found at the scene, but he won't say anything more specific than that. See, this is really weird. So, found at the scene right at the time of the murder or at a later time? See, that's a very critical point. He's not answering that. If it was found on the scene, why is he talking about all this cell phone data, cell phone tower pings, and all of this in the other article? I mean, this is all really weird, unless, of course, he's lying about where it was found, but, So, they're saying, so this was from last year, of course, coinciding with the Anthony Shots account information being released. So, is that a coincidence or some kind of information with the Anthony Shots account is linked to them admitting they have the phone from the Hummel murder? Detective Safe responded here, I was happy to stumble upon your post as it seems almost everyone has tunnel vision in regards to the Kleins. I think Chadwell and the Kleins know each other. I did very heavy researching on Chadwell and sent all the weird coincidences I uncovered to the tip line. Regardless of whatever it means, I just pray the ones responsible for these terrible crimes are charged and brought to justice. Throw It Away asked which coincidences were uncovered. Okay, 1. Chadwell was residing within driving distance of the crime scene areas when the 3 murders took place. Alicia Hummel, Lyric and Elizabeth, and Abby and Libby. It would also be curious to know where he was during the Jordan Sofer case as well. As far as I and others have read, his extensive court document history can tell he was out of prison during the time frame of all 3 murders. 2, his love of being outdoors and camping. He almost always lived in an area that was close to a recreational park of some kind, so he could have been familiar with various places. According to his Facebook, he was sometimes homeless and would sleep in wooded areas and under bridges. 3, of the available details that have been released on the 3 crimes, the following stick out. A, all 3 crimes occurred outdoors in wooded park-type settings near water. B, all 3 crimes occurred near the same time of day in broad daylight. C, Libby, Alicia, and Lyric bear a physical resemblance in body type, facial features, hair color to each other and to Chadwell's deceased mom. And so does Sofer, actually. D, Libby, Alicia, and Lyric were all raised by their grandparents. In Lyric's case, her grandmother. Libby and Lyric had 2 middle names, Roselyn and Raylyn. Just kind of interesting. E, both Libby and Alicia posted photos to Snapchat within a short time frame of their subsequent murders. 4, Chadwell posted pics on his Facebook of artwork he was working on. 2 roses with a skull and blonde hair. The background is purple and the blonde hair is outlined in teal. There's a news article saying in Delphi, ribbons can be found in various places and they're in the girl's favorite colors, purple and teal. 5, he drove to an obscure covered bridge in Rowan, Indiana, and left a review about it on Google. I was shocked because me and Chadwell were born in the same hospital, lived in the same towns, and I had never heard of that bridge until 2019 when I saw it from my aunt's window. Okay, so Chadwell knows all of these obscure bridges and parks and places of that nature. That's curious. 6, pour over his Facebook if you can handle it. Watch his videos. Listen to his voice. There's a 37-second video of his dogs on his porch. Listen to the tone change when he says, "Don't be jealous." Then listen to the tone change on the audio released by law enforcement. Again, not definitive, but very interesting. 7, literally stumbled upon 2 books written by a Brian Chadwell on Goodreads. The 2 books don't exist. I'll post pics. Look at the published date, his favorite books list, and read each of the titles. The time of the postings was after his arrest in April. Someone posing as Chadwell as a joke, or did Chadwell himself post it? I've no clue. There's more, but this is what stuck out to me. When looking at him, researching for myself, standing back and looking at all the info as a whole, it's crazy. Does it mean he's the one? I don't know. I'm not privy to what evidence law enforcement has or doesn't have. I'm an outsider looking in and wanted to find out as much as I could about him and the 3 crimes, which may or may not be related. I just want these poor families to receive some type of closure and for the killer or killers to be brought to justice. So someone responded here with the Goodreads profile. The book descriptions sound like they were written by someone possessed. One person Haley saved it and only it, along with the Dollhouse Murders. My 5th search result is a link to Beating Books and mentions the name Keenan. The book and that collection are disturbing as well. I hope someone looks into this further and shares their findings of notable with law enforcement. So someone actually screenshotted this by someone. Yeah, so the profile name is just Jay. Details: age 36, Rossville, Indiana. Joined in April 2021, last active May 2021. Interests: reading, hiking, nature, hunting, photography. Favorite books: anything about true crimes, forensic science, and DNA. Comsic forces, a typo probably for cosmic forces. So, 36-year-old man from Rossville, Indiana, who loves to travel across the country, to hike across the state, to birdwatch, and hunt across the country, and even more so after my divorce, January 2017. That's interesting. So, again, there are some people who are having trouble researching exactly when he was married and divorced because of, again, his prison time and possibly being in prison during some records. But regardless, whether or not this is Chadwell, the criminal profile, or at least one of which have been released, is that this was a recently divorced guy, January 2017, and then a few weeks later, around Valentine's Day, Delphi Murders happened. Is there a connection there? I don't know. I'm just going over this particular profile here. When I am not trailing, I like to read a good book, but even better is to read during a hiking trip, but do not trail and read at the same time. You can hurt your foot, like I did some years ago on that railroad. Ha ha. We can say I am a book aficionado. Ashamed to say that I am into numerology also. 2, 4, and 13 being my favorite ones and the most significant to me. Also into philosophy, but prefer to talk about it rather than read about it. Me, the Shadow. Okay, that's kind of weird. That's definitely kind of weird. And there's all these books that don't exist connected with this. Okay, what does everybody make of that? That's really weird. Again, I can't help but compare this to the JonBenet Ramsey case at this point. Because if there's so many good suspects with theoretically plausible evidence against them, coincidental or not, is it possible this is a ring? And even if it's not the same people doing the killing, do they know each other? Are they trying to show off for each other or upstage each other with these killings? Are these sick jokes in numerology and names? I mean, are they using their drug connections, which, again, I don't know if there's any drug connections with Myron Grove here, with Hummel, but in the Evansdale and Delphi murders, there are family members with drug connections. So are these a case of criminals knowing other criminals and knowing of children, and they pick them on purpose for numerological or names and appearances, etc., etc.? Richard Allen's daughter supposedly also looks like Libby, so which resembles also Sofer. So what is going on here, and how long has it been going on? I mean, these are the important questions here. And also in this other case, Myron Grove, there's also funny business regarding the phone, just like in the Delphi murders. Why is there so much funny business? Snapchat issues. There seem to be issues with everything in these cases. And is that in and of itself a coincidence that we can't dodge here? Niven posted this. The one that I wonder about all the time is the Lyric Cook Elizabeth Morrissey murders. Whoever did that had to have firsthand knowledge of where the bodies were found, an extremely isolated area that wasn't close to where the girls disappeared. Also, people discussing these cases, it seems like, not in Evansdale, but at least in Delphi and Myron Grove here, there were details about where the girls were going, social media details, advertising locations, etc. So, how does that line up with crime of opportunity versus people who knew where they would be? Also, the employee that found her, he found her relatively quickly after she was killed. So, what does that mean? Is he involved? If he's not involved, I mean, again, we don't have the details of exactly where he was and what he was doing before he found the body, but I mean, did he simply just get there as the other car was just speeding away? Because in that case, I guess it's not as suspicious, but again, we don't know the circumstances, so we can't really, there's nothing really we can hypothesize at this point with that. Someone else, Damned Princess here brought up an excellent point. One thing to consider about the texting someone and moments or minutes later dead is the fact that in places where cell coverage is spotty, like rural America often is, you can send a text and it does not immediately go through. For instance, my phone will try to send the message for a minute or two, then try again. I'm not sure if it times out or if the phone tries, say, 4 times, then it gives me a notice that the message was not sent, and I have the option to try again. My boyfriend's phone, different brand phone, will just repeatedly continue to try and send the message until it does go through, no matter how long it takes. It's possible that the message in question has been typed earlier and had just not gone through. I mean, that's a good point. You would think, I mean, I don't know, would a phone data should have that information, right? Like the first time it was attempted to be sent. Because that's a really good point. I'm sure everybody's gotten texts maybe even a whole day after they were initially sent, and then you call the person, they're like, oh, I sent that yesterday, you just got that now? Or at least, even an hour or two off, or even 10 minutes off. That could change the dynamic here quite substantially. So that is something to consider as well. Also, the timelines here, right? If we believe the official timeline in Delphi, which I am not alleging anybody should, but if the timeline is as reported, they get dropped off, the Snapchat, I mean, this is all happening within minutes in a somewhat busy area in broad daylight. There's, like what's the margin for error in the timeline for a murderer to get away? And yet, if the timeline is true, they got away. Now, in Myron Grove and the Hummel case, again, we without those exact details on the phone timing and the uploads to Snapchat, if she was even the one that uploaded them. I mean, if that's all true, I mean, we also, not only do we have all these other similarities, but we have extremely tight windows here in broad daylight, which that is curious. It's kind of hard to just immediately write that off. And of course, obviously, the proximity being off the same highway, if somebody is traveling these areas that they could easily commit these crimes in terms of based on where they were traveling. You know what else I just thought of too? If the couple, if the people in the car engaged in the sex act, if they did come forward, and if they were not in a dark sedan, would law enforcement disclose that information? Because what if they did come forward? And what if that's not related to Hummel's death and it's all a red herring, and for whatever reason they want the guilty parties to think that they're focusing on that while they're not? I mean, again, with all of these cases where law enforcement flat out lies about things to protect the investigation, which a lot of the time that's the smart move. Maybe a lot of cases it's not the smart move. It's kind of hard to tell without knowing all the variables, but is it possible that's not a I mean, yeah, it's kind of hard to think about this because without that being 100% verified, that do we know no one actually did come forward? Because maybe they did. And if let's say there was a witness to the car or possibly a shady individual, would law enforcement protect that person and their identity? Or what if this witness, law enforcement has a reason to doubt their story and they think they're the guilty party? Would they make it public or not make it public in that situation? Again, there's just so many variables here. It's really impossible to dismiss these cases as related, but, obviously we don't know that they're related, or we can't even really determine variables conclusively either. I mean, that's what's so frustrating here. Another point, too, I mean, more commenters are kind of discussing if the people having sex, if they were consenting adults, were they possibly drugged up or psychotic and they just took so much offense that somebody looked at them, or again, if they thought she was taking photos or videos of them, even if she wasn't, would if they were again on some kind of drugs, would they both kill her? Would they just kill her and then leave? I mean, people on drugs don't always make the most rational decisions, especially if they had killed other people before. I mean, yeah, I mean, that's something to think about as well, in which case it might not be related to the other cases. Now, here's an interesting post from Old Cat George. I always felt that Delphi and Myron Grove were related, not sure about Evansdale. And again, let's not fall for false dichotomies or trichotomies, so to speak here. What if Myron Grove and Delphi are related and Evansdale's not related? I mean, that would be an interesting wrinkle because on the surface, Evansdale and Delphi seem to be the most relatable. So we know little about the motive and very skeptical about Chadwell, but Libby and Alicia Hummel look very much alike. In looks, especially if you find Hummel's wedding photo and maybe even the personalities. He was very fast in both cases. Also, there is something parallel about the shoes or boots. Maybe some fetish. I mean, boots, I don't know. Yeah, the shoes, that's another detail that we didn't really go back to after the initial. So there was some kind of dress or shoes somebody would wear in a restaurant. Was that the case? Why would there be shoes left? Were they left on purpose as a red herring? Because that's kind of weird. The theory is that they took the shoes off to get the body more into the water. But then why leave the shoes there? And would the shoes have DNA on them? And that's the DNA evidence being possibly referenced, not necessarily under the fingernails of Hummel. Wise Mance also had a follow-up post here referencing if the killer believed he was being filmed by Hummel, even if he wasn't, did that cause him to snap and kill her? If this is the same killer in Delphi, did he snap and kill them because he did know they were filming him? Some people believe that he didn't know that, but yeah, I mean, yeah, there's so many variables here. It's pretty tough to make heads or tails. Also, I mean, again, in the social media age, it's kind of hard to dismiss. It's weird because the profiles are seemingly opposite ends of the spectrum. Is this an outdoorsman hiker? But on the other hand, is it some kind of social media savvy individual who's following their posts if they were targeted? It's like these murders check the boxes at opposite ends of the spectrum simultaneously. That's really weird here. Unless, again, if it's more than one person. If it's more than one person, different personalities involved, does that theoretically solves that problem? Just another excerpt here from the post. For a long time, it was actually difficult for me to reconcile some of the dissimilarities between Myron Grove and Delphi in my mind. My honest opinion is that Alicia Hummel and Libby and Abby might have unintentionally done something to piss off a deranged, violent person. This behavior is somewhat consistent with what we know about Chadwell. He has a history of violence against women, more than 2 restraining orders filed, at least 6 assault and battery charges from 1998 to 2003. After 2003, there are no more charges of violent crimes against him until 2021. He was in prison from 2003 to 2009. So does that rule him out for SOFR? After that, he was on supervised release and parole and probation. I think he realized he would go right back to prison if he got caught for inflicting violence on people. So did he become rehabilitated like he was supposed to? I would venture to say no. I think he escalated his behavior to murder. I think he enjoys harming people, and he realized that dead people don't talk. I think he's a pedophile in some capacity, but I think he's different from most pedophiles. The incident with the 9-year-old in 2021 allows us to understand a lot about him. It gives us more clarity to his arrest on August 25th, 2012, where he was arrested for DUI just before midnight, and there were 2 children in his car. Note that the Evansdale murders took place on July 13th, 2012. I somewhat think that he selects children as victims because he's able to exert more control over them. It also seems like he prefers 2 victims at a time. I think he's been getting away with sick expletive for years, and part of me believes there are several other incidents we don't know about. Oh, well, okay, so his DUI, a few weeks after the Evansdale murders, he had 2 children in his car during that DUI? That's weird. Also, going back to the shoes left on the scene, I mean, obviously they would have the size of the shoe. Which perpetrator matches the shoe? I mean, we have a pretty big, we have some extensive suspect lists here. One final post here on this thread. You make some very good points. Evansdale has not been solved. Victims 8 and 10. Delphi has not been solved. Victims 13 and 14. Of course, it'd be ridiculous to assume even the possibility that we have a burgeoning serial killer. Based on what we have so far, in 2012, elementary girls, in 2017, junior high girls. 2022 trajectory is 2 senior high girls, the location of which will be drivable to Hannibal, Missouri. Why Hannibal? Because all of the others were. I note that the murder of Molly Tibbetts occurred in Brooklyn, Iowa, very near Evansdale. I thought there was something strange with how the body was found and have doubts about the conviction. In saying this, I am not accusing anyone for the interpretation of evidence by its very subjective nature. Okay, this opened a can of worms. I will be covering the Molly Tibbetts case. I mean, there's a lot of problems with that case. So many problems. I don't know if that's related, but a very interesting post here from Grovziner9. And that's a good point there. So this was made a year ago. So within 5 years, I mean, it was 5 years from 2012 to 2017. So it would be 2022 trajectory. But so there would be, again, if this continued, then there would be 2 if the guy's not in prison. So if it was Chadwell, does that explain why nothing happened in 2022? If Chadwell wasn't in prison, would there be another case of 2 senior high school girls abducted and killed together? Were the plans interrupted according to this pattern if this is the same person or same ring? Or if people know of any cases, were there abductions of 2 girls at the same time in 2022 in the general area, or at least within the driving distance of all of these 3 crimes? I mean, that's something I haven't seen done enough. Looking to the future, if this is either a serial killer or a ring that wants to send a message with the numerology and the symbolism and all of this, would they stop? Or do they figure the heat's just on too much that they're not going to continue? Or, again, are some or all of them already locked up and or dead? I mean, these are interesting questions. These are definitely interesting questions. Hope everybody found another edition of Mindshock True Crime interesting and informative. If you want to help support the podcast, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. You can also become a YouTube member right here on YouTube. Help support the channel that way. Get access to exclusive streams and chats. Like and share Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, Patreon. Make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. If you're not getting notifications, just like and comment on more videos. Apparently, that's how the YouTube algorithm works. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comments section. This is Bruce McGuire signing off. Catch you guys